Welcome to the One Stiletto in the Grave podcast with your hosts, Sonny Ormond and Jane James.
Well, hello everyone. We're feeling a bit green today. No, it's not due to seasickness, it's garden talk. Our Sonny's foxgloves flopping and Jane's courgettes dangling. The irresistible joy of the coriander and the zen of the open air. But most importantly, we are having a good old natter with delightful best-selling author Judy Astley.
Hey, Sonny. Hello, how are you? What have you been up to today?
Well, not necessarily today, but yesterday I was in the garden. I was doing my gardening, and I have to say, I love this time of year because everything really seems to be in bloom, sort of May, June time. It's gorgeous, isn't it? Roses and such a lot of flowers are in bloom. So, yeah, I was in the garden, titivating my roses and doing all that, and tying them up because they'd flopped a bit because of the rain. But I love it. I just love being. I find it really, really relaxing, So that's what I was really mainly doing yesterday. I haven't had time really to do much today, apart from the dogs out. But yeah, that's what I've been. What about you? What have you been up to?
Well, nothing much, but I have got, funny enough, some gardening planned for the afternoon because I've got my tomato plants arrived yesterday.
Exciting.
So, yeah, they look hideous actually because they were delivered into the very hot porch and sat there all day because I was out. But so they need to go out, and I've got some sweet corn to go out and some coriander and quite a few things that need to go out into the garden because we don't really do flowers very much. I don't really understand flowers. We tend to do food.
But you're very successful with that, aren't you? With your vegetable plot.
Well, we do grow stuff, and we do eat it. But your garden looks prettier than ours because it's got more colour in it.
Well, yes, it's just the way it is, though, isn't it? We've never had a vegetable plot, and it's something I really would have. My dad was because he was a farmer originally, and he had a lovely kind of vegetable plot all his life. But I don't know why I never got into it really, or maybe the gardens have just not been the right shape for it.
I don't know, but maybe it's because neither your partner nor my partner eat vegetables. So
true. Yeah, it's not worth it, is it? Quite
not
frankly,
really.
And there's only so much stuff you can stick in the freezer, quite frankly, isn't there? So,
I've still got chilies from about 4 years ago. Funny enough, our guest today is also a very keen gardener. I've seen her garden and it's bloody lovely. Our guest today is quite a Renaissance woman, I'd say. She's a writer, she's an illustrator, she's a designer, and she used to be a dressmaker for Liberty. And she's written, I think, about a novel a year for 20 years, and she's got such a great gift for description and humour. And she is the very lovely Judy Astley. Hello, Judy.
Lovely to be
Judy.
here.
Welcome.
Hi, Sonny and
Really,
Jane.
it's really nice to see you.
And you.
Now, we met through the Archers, didn't we, online?
We did. We were part of the Archers anarchist group, and Sir, who was in charge of us, started telling us off because we talked about things that weren't Archers as we got to know each other. So lovely Barbara set up the Borchester Asylum, and we joined that. And then we started meeting up in real life, which I thought was, a very good thing. And I met some of my best friends through that, really. I remember meeting Mish. I think she said she was coming down to London and going to Harrods. So we met by the parrot cage in the pet department. And we had no idea what each other looked like. But, she looked great, had a lovely hat, the whole bit. And so it went from there. I remember meeting you. Was it in a restaurant in Wimbledon? And there again, we didn't know what each other looked like. And you said you'd been offered 2 other ladies before I came in.
I had. They just kept trying to palm people off on me. It was very, very funny.
Is this your lady or that lady?
So I don't know.
So you didn't set up that thing, whereas I will be wearing a red rose in my lapel. You didn't do all that then. You just
I think we just sort of booked a table in your name and thought it would work, and of course it did. It was fine.
It did. But it was funny because in those days, because we were going back a while, it was quite creepy to meet people online.
Oh yes, it's the sort of thing my husband, I remember him saying, "You're not meeting people off the internet, are you?" I said, "Look, I'm meeting women of, it's fine. I'm not sort of going out on the street looking for weird men or something.
Yes,
I could do that in my own time."
And it was in a public place, so
it was absolutely yes.
Yeah. So you reassured him. That's good.
Yes, and also he's met some of them as well. So that's, another thing. And he's a plane spotter. He meets people all over the world who are a bit odd.
Oh, does he? How interesting.
I know. He's military only. He has standards.
Oh, God. That's a whole other podcast, isn't it? Because I want to ask a million questions about that. But I do want to talk about the Archers. And how long do you think you've been listening to it?
I don't know. I remember it when I've got a couple of childhood memories of my mother sitting me down to listen to that, and then it was Listen with Mother or something. So I probably took it all in a bit then. And then I remember when I was at university, my friend Dawn and I, after lunch, we would sit in our room and do our crochet and listen to the Archers. And I thought, look at us, we're 20 years old. We're like two old ladies sitting there. And now I'm an old lady and I'm still listening to it.
Are you still crocheting?
I remember things like... No, in fact, I wasn't very good at crochet. I can knit. No, crochet is not really, I think.
Well, that's something you guys share in common, because you're a great knitter as well, aren't you, Janie?
I do like knitting. I love knitting. I'm rubbish at sewing up, but I often get my daughter to do the sewing up bits. But I do love to knit.
I like to knit. I just knitted a yellow submarine doorstop.
Have you?
Of course, I haven't finished it because it's the old doing the sewing up bit that I've knitted all the bits and I haven't finished. But it's I saw it came up on an advert late one night. I probably had a glass of wine and it came up on Facebook and I thought, they actually do know me. So I sort of bought the kit and it all arrived. Everything's there, even down to the needle to sew it up with. So I've knitted it, yes.
And you've had to stuff it, presumably. You've had to stuff it.
Yes, they give you the stuffing.
The full thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Love it.
Gosh.
Oh, I might get the details of that later.
Starting something here.
Everybody needs one.
Yes.
Everybody needs one. So, so going back to the Archers, very, very briefly, who, this is obvious question to ask, but who are the characters that you really enjoy listening to?
Now, look, you don't now look, shall I avert my gaze or avert my ears at this particular
I do actually like all the bits with Lillian, because they're always a bit crisper, sharper edged than a lot of the others. I quite like Kate at the moment, because she's so barking, really, isn't she? And yet she's right at the moment.
She is. But, it's really interesting, actually, that, Judy, because when she came in properly as this kind of well-formed character, I thought, this really is a chip off the old block. And I always love scenes with her because you can see, the characteristics in a way in her and in her aunt, which is Lillian. And because she's been barking, she says what she thinks, she's always putting her foot in it, But no, she's a great character, isn't she? Yeah.
It is lovely. And I like Tracy Horrobin at the moment too. I think she's being an absolute star. I'm a bit kind of over the Jazza and Jim love fest. I think it just was a bit too sentimental. And as Jazza said, he's only across the green. It's honestly on the Archers, if somebody moves away even 100 yards, it's as if they've gone to Siberia forever. I mean, what's it all that fuss about Phoebe going to Scotland? I mean, it's not. It's only up there, isn't it? It's not abroad. Well, mind you, it depends where Ambridge is that particular time. Right. Ambridge moves.
It does move, doesn't it?
It does. It has its own climate, of course.
Yes. And we always get very anxious, Judy, if you get a script, and it says you're off on holiday to somewhere, or there's a possibility of you just think, right, that's it, end of my career in the office. You get a bit sweaty under the armpits and think, how long am I away for?
Who was it they got rid of? They got rid of Nick, didn't they? They killed her off. She was killed off.
Yes.
Sepsis. Quite a warning because when the cat bit me and it swelled up, I thought of her and I thought I was going the same way. But anyway, no, Nick was lovely, and I had to do a charity. I did a whole bunch of us did short stories for a charity about teenagers, troubled teenagers, and it was on a CD. And the one who was Nick, read mine, And it was just,
yes.
and she was just lovely. And we all
Becky.
met at a sort of launch party. It was great.
Yes, no, she
I was sad to see her go.
I know, and you know, I mean, you know, that's the way these things go, isn't it? But she was and is a really lovely radio, not radio. I'm a radio actress, you know, I can speak. But she had a lovely. Sorry, and I've just hit the microphone. I'm really fantastic, aren't I? You wouldn't think I've been doing this for 20 years. But she had a really lovely, crisp, clear quality as well, Becky, which I always really, enjoyed.
Yes, she was great.
Sonny and I keep kind of contemplating who might have bought Grey Gables, because nobody asks, do they? Nobody says which is you'd think would be the first thing they'd want to know.
It's obviously going to be a big revelation, possibly. I mean, I have no idea, but I maybe that is what's going to happen. A big reveal.
I hope so. And what happened to the Gills? I mean, they buy Home Farm and they're living in it in secrecy.
Do you know?
I thought perhaps they bought Grey Gables.
Well, you never know. I know that all went very quiet. You're very right there, you know. The thing is, it's a very big cast now. We are a very big cast, and I think you can very easily lose track of some storylines or some characters. But you're so right. What did happen to the Gills?
Yes, they vanished.
I
wonder if they threw out Jennifer's wonderful kitchen. I mean, how is she managing without that hot tap thing?
I can't imagine, because it was a fantastic kitchen. I mean, we had lots of episodes about that kitchen, I do remember.
It did go on, didn't it?
It did. But no, she did make quite a smooth transition, didn't she, into the downsizing, which
She did, but they've been there an awful long time, isn't it? Aren't they looking for somewhere? I mean, they must have the money for it, so I just wonder...
It depends on whether Christopher Carter takes it all,
true,
I suppose, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe Christopher Carter's bought Grey Gables with the money he expects to get from...
I expect he has,
From Brian and Jane.
You never know.
Yeah.
But you had a great idea, didn't you, actually, Jane, that maybe Matt Crawford has secretly bought it.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yes. Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Wouldn't that be wonderful? Something like that from left field would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
I would absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Hello, Pushcat.
That would be fantastic.
Hello, Pushcat. Yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we do miss that. Justin's nice, but I do miss. I do miss Tiger.
Simon's absolutely lovely as Justin, but yeah, it would be. Well, he's a bit like he's a Vince Casey type, isn't he? Old Matt, you know, you know, once he's around, there'll be some plot being hatched. There'll be some trouble.
Oh, absolutely. Money will go.
Yeah,
and it won't be his.
Yeah, quite. Yeah. Do you like Chelsea? New character Chelsea. Do you like her?
Oh yes, I think she's great.
Yeah.
She's really got the makings of a good one.
Yeah, she's great.
And I think she's very capable. I like that she, even though she seemed to be a bit cheeky to Freddie when she was being a waitress, she was right.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah. No, she was, and you know, it's been. I love that about her as well. And we had a scene. Oh gosh, she hadn't long been playing the character. I mean, I think she's brilliant because she is just Tracy in miniature. They're so clever. You totally believe their mother and daughter, don't you? But we had a scene where she was, because she's training to be a hairdresser. She was giving both Linda and myself a bouffant, or trying to give me a bouffant. And I remember in the scene, it was wonderful. And she turned round and she said, "Look, Lil." And no one has ever called Lillian Lil. No. And it was just wonderful. And I remember at the time thinking, how do I, as Lillian, react to this? But yeah, she's just great. I think she's got them. I'm really looking forward to see how they develop her.
Yes.
Because she's sensitive too. Because there were scenes recently when she's trying to help her mum out because her mum sort of lost the job. And I think there are lots of scenes
she's terrific,
here.
But I do think she will be the next Mrs. Pargeter.
Yes.
I think she'd be
think?
And I think there'll be outrage from poor Lizzie and everything because of Freddie's going to marry a Horrobin.
Gosh,
and I think that'd be great. I love it.
That would be a really interesting couple.
That's definitely, if I was writing it, I would do that.
Yeah.
At some point.
And we'd all be listening. Because one of the things I always think about is just thinking about your books is that you write teenagers terribly, terribly well, which is not an easy thing to do, I think, as one gets older, because I've forgotten it. How do you do that?
Well, I'm not sure now, because at the time I had teenagers, so I only had to kind of, look into their room and say, what are you doing, or tidy up or whatever. And I would do the school run, and they would be in the back of the car because their school was across Richmond Park. It was a lot easier, even up to 16, for me to go and collect them. And of course they'd be sitting in the back with their mates, and I, of course, being an old woman, don't exist, so they'd talk away. And it was kind of easy just observing. Now, of course, I've got teenage grandchildren. It's that lot.
Right.
So I suppose there's that, if they ever get out of their phones. But I've got one of 22, and he's even sort of past teenage himself.
No.
I know, Casper. Bless him.
How did that happen? Casper's 8.
I know, he should be, but he's not. He's 22 and he's 6'4".
Gosh.
He's gorgeous. He's a real sweetie. And then I've got a 14-year-old, 12, and then 10 girls.
Right.
So I think they'll be quite useful in their time when I'm doing the next book. But I think at the moment I'm trying to incorporate older people. I started a book the other day, and a couple of weeks ago. Okay, a couple of months. I haven't written much, but I'm trying to do multi-generation stuff. I always do a bit, but I get quite cross about how somebody was reading a book the other day, and they said there was a woman in it of just 60, and the writer had made her absolutely decrepit. She couldn't work any tech. She couldn't do anything. She was kind of wobbly and hopeless. Already at the age where they say she had a fall as opposed to fell over, which I hope I'm not even there yet, and I'm past that age. But it's as if some generations think, or the younger ones think, you get to 50 and you immediately have a cauliflower perm. And we don't. You know, this is...
Well, certainly not now, Judy. I mean, you know, because... In fact, we were talking about this, weren't we, the other day, actually, Janie? You know, I mean... Do you know, I was watching... I think I shared that with you. I was watching some programme on the telly, and Lulu came on. And, I mean, she's fantastic. She looks brilliant. And she happened to share, just on the interview, that she was 73. I could not believe that she looked like she was 43, and that is just a perfect example, isn't it? So many women. I mean, we've moved on so much, you know.
Yes.
And it's that old image in people's heads, or can be in people's heads, but no. I mean, it's
exactly, and also, you know, the idea of going into, if you're in a care home and they still insist you've seen Vera Lynn songs, you know, this is the generation that had Stones and Beatles and what have you, and still like them. So there's no way I'm going into a home if I have to sing Vera Lynn.
God, no.
Blimey.
But you started the move to, because the last 2 books that you wrote, the 2 Mistletoe books, feature quite heavily older characters, don't they, who are thinking of selling up the family home, and the very grown-up children have a nervous breakdown about it.
Yes, spending the inheritance.
Yes, and shock horror, they are older people who have sex.
They do, yes.
With other people as well as with each other. Which
absolutely. Well, you know, there's that thing about, I think in one of my books I had a couple, she'd met some chap, she was about 76, and they went for an afternoon delight in the Ritz Hotel. And they didn't die from it. Nobody questioned them. I think that's a great thing about being older. If you go to a hotel with a lover, nobody suspects, because they go, they're old people, they won't be doing that. And also,
that's a good point.
Also, Sunny, when you did that piece when you had an affair in The Archers, I think you were really rocking it for the older ones. Going to a hotel with a lover.
Yeah, with Paul, character of Paul. Yeah, it's, I mean, I've been really lucky in The Archers. I mean, when I joined, she was in her 50s. And I tell you what, I mean, you know, I've never had so many relationships post-50 as I have in The Archers. But it is fantastic, isn't it? You know, I mean, it's wonderful because in one part of the studio, you know, we have a sofa bed, which we use. You know, it comes down if we've got bed scenes. I tell you what, I have used that sofa bed so many times. It's absolutely marvellous. But yeah, it's great.
Actually bounce on it.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's always 3 people in that relationship, because of course there's usually me and the actor and a duvet and the spot person who's rustling the duvet. So there's always 3 of us there.
Wonderful.
Yeah, they're always great fun to do though, those scenes. But I funnily enough, I'm actually reading your final book at the minute, A Merry Mistletoe Wedding. I'm 3/4 of the way through, and I love it, Judy. I absolutely love it. But I do love those 2 old characters, the parents. They're just so... I don't know, vivid, and and so funny. What I love about you, you're so descriptive, beautiful descriptions, but then this terrific humour. And also, I can hear each of those characters. They're so different, the rhythms of them. And that's something that I wanted to ask you as a writer, well, both of you in a way, because I know me as an actor, if I get a script, I look at a character, it's not playing Lily in something else, and I build up a rhythm of that character in my head. Do you do the same when you're writing? When you're actually writing, have you got the rhythm of that characters you write?
Yes, I think I have. And if I don't get it right when I first make the character, I have to really rethink them. But I think that's what comes first. I don't really always know what they look like.
Really?
But I know
That's
how they'd speak. I mean, I know people who, when they plot out their book, they sort of almost cut pictures. In fact, some of them do cut pictures out of magazines of like what they really think the person looks like. Mine are never quite that fixed. Apart from there's a character called Charlotte in the Mistletoe books, who I think of as the fairy godmother.
I like her.
Actually,
Yeah, she's great.
She's
lovely.
great.
Yeah.
I knew exactly what she looked like. Sort of either blousy, lots of red hair, mad, great. But otherwise, I don't always know. But I do. The rhythm of how they speak and how they think.
You hear them.
Is there?
And when you're actually physically writing, are you here? Do you have a voice in your head, or is it not quite as formed as that? Do you know what I mean?
It's not quite as formed,
no.
but I do type very fast. Because the course that my teachers at school said, "Oh, you must never do secretarial." Most useful thing I ever did. I think because I type really fast, there's nothing between the head and the computer in the way.
Yeah.
So I think it's sort of typing in. It's dialogue in real time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
And so the further you get into a book, I mean, you type very fast anyway, you say, but do all those characters come much more quickly? The further you get into it, when they really become, I suppose, part of your own personal DNA, do you or is that not necessarily so?
Well, they're always in your head, and and whichever interaction they're having with each other is there. And it's a slight nuisance in that they're there whatever else you're doing, I think, yes. Sort of, I'm out for dinner or something, or just mucking about in the garden. And they'll be in there talking to each other.
Gosh.
And then I have to rush off and write a word down. Sometimes you only need one word to get the gist of what's happening. Yeah. But they're always there.
Gosh, isn't that
mingling.
So fascinating?
Is there, when you finish a book, is there a sort of grieving process because you've finished with those characters?
No. No, just delighted to, bye-bye.
Just like, great,
see you.
The end, done.
Well, there's that for about a week or two until the edits come back, and then you have to get back into them all over again, which is fine. I prefer editing to the actual writing, because it's so much easier. At least you've got something to work with. Whereas a blank page is always going to be a blank page, isn't it?
It is always a bit intimidating. I guess there might be people who are filled with joy at the thought of a blank page.
I haven't actually written a whole book for about 4 years now. I just lost the mojo. It went away. But it seems to have worked its way back in, which is good.
So can you tell us anything about what your... I know this is early days for you with the new thing that you're starting to look at, but... Yeah,
it's a woman who's... the main woman, they always tend to be about the same age, sort of early 40s, I suppose. Her house has fallen down because something's driven into it and knocked a wall down. So she has to go and live for a while with her mother-in-law, who is living in a house that's much too big for her. The mother-in-law is sort of late 60s, early 70s, something like that. She, in her turn, has also a really old mother who is recently widowed, lives on her own, back in her own house. But I think she's just broken a hip, so she's also going to move in. So we've got all the generations and a young daughter and other people who I haven't decided on yet, and I'm not sure what happens to them all, because that's always the problem with me. I don't have a story. I have people, and I sort of see what they do.
Oh, really? Now that is interesting. So you're not a writer that has a beginning, a middle and an end in terms of where you know it's going, right?
I usually know where it's going to end, but how it gets there. I'd love to be one of those people who has a list of chapters, knows exactly what's going to happen. That would be so much better. Because you'd know where you are all the time, but it doesn't. It's never worked like that for me. I don't know.
But then it's kind of interesting when the characters, because I understand we never plot anything. I don't know how to plot anything, but it's nice to give the characters the freedom to develop how they want, isn't it?
It is, but it's kind of annoying because you finish work that one day and you think, God, what's going to happen next session? And I just don't know. And I've been known to sort of not go back and look at it for quite a while, like 4 years,
But it's kind of exciting that though. But have you ever been in the position where you've written quite a lot, and then you look at it and think, oh, no, I don't like a lot of this. I'm going to sort of go back and start a lot of it again, or do you tend to generally move forward constantly?
I can generally move forward constantly. What I haven't got this time though, that G's me on, I haven't got a contract. Because I'm now quite out of the loop, so I'm writing this just to see if I can get a deal. And I'm going to have to write the whole thing, because if someone likes the first 3 chapters, they want to see the rest of it now. They don't want to wait a year while I fanny about with it. So, I've just got to write the whole thing. And it's kind of in the ether. I might not get a deal, who knows? I don't know.
But so that's interesting.
I'm sure you will.
So that's
interesting. I hope so.
So before, you tended to, the pressure was that you knew you got the contract, you've got to get it out. Whereas this time, of course, it will go out eventually, but you haven't got that deadline. So does that make it easier or not to write?
Harder. Because I can sort of think, I'll write a bit this afternoon. And then I think, oh no, I haven't put the cosmos out in their pots yet. Or, I'm a great one for gardening as well, like you. So I'm out there all the time, faffing about. And I take refuge in my greenhouse, in winter. Sort of go in there and plant seeds, because I can't bear to have nothing coming up. It's got to be there. But I've got to make much more effort with the work. Really.
Sorry, Jenny. No, go.
I was just going to say, is it one of those things that you have to kind of force yourself to put your bum on the chair?
Absolutely.
But once you do it, you enjoy it.
Yes, that is it. That's exactly it. So
it's a bit like
it's funny that, isn't it? Because it is, I can procrastinate for ages, and once I start, I just want to keep going. But
I could win medals for procrastination. I really could.
And have you ever wanted to write a play, Judy, or at all?
No, I think that's a whole other skill that I admire enormously, but I couldn't. I don't think I could do it. Well, I mean, I'd probably have to go and do a course on how to do it. I've got a friend who teaches script writing at Falmouth, at the university there, and she does some great stuff. She writes plays, and they're wonderful. I have written something else that I was thinking I would do, which was a kind of life writing thing based on my diaries when I was about a teenager. But there again, I got about 30,000 words into that and thought, I've started to get depressed now.
So you've still got your teenage diaries?
I've got 64 to 70.
Wow.
6 years. And I wrote them every day. Did you? Yes, they're mostly full of snogged so-and-so or whatever, or Carol's going out with Dave and it's not fair, all that. That's very much obsessive. And all the bands I went to see as well. I used to go and see them on Eel Pie Island, which was a huge thing back in the day. And I've got every one of them that I saw was listed. Pink Floyd was a good one. I saw them twice in 1967, I think.
Wow.
On the island.
But it's great to have that historical record, isn't it, actually?
It is. The weird thing with diaries, and I think everyone, if I'd known back then, I'd have kept one forever. But you can remember, I mean, there are some occasions that I can read a few lines from, and I remember what I was wearing, where I was, whether I hitched to Richmond or got a bus, all that, because I didn't really get buses much. If you walk to the bus stop with your thumb out, you'd always get a lift.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember hitching.
Dangerous days.
Yeah, I can remember that as well. Hitching around. But it's curious, that isn't it? That just I don't know, word or that a festival, and it opens up all those memories that you not forgotten because they're in there somewhere. But
they are. Yes. I always wonder if I got dementia or something, would things like diaries maybe trigger they trigger memories from the past, but I suppose not the present. So
But
still be in a
your love of
mess.
music would, because they say, don't they, music often is the link with dementia, isn't it? It can really.
I was
open up
reading that this morning. I think it's Universal Music have put out a sort of like a streaming thing, but cheaper. I hate to say it's called Vera. There we go, Vera Lynn.
Oh dear,
I know,
Vera
it's
Lynn
for
again.
older
God.
people, obviously, but it's everything Universal have ever put out, and you can get it for a certain price. But they say it does trigger lots of memories. But it's there again. It's not the memories that people with dementia have problems with. It's present day, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, not the long term, it's the short term, isn't it? The processing, the immediate processing of stuff.
I think one thing though with music, I think there will never be. I wonder if there will ever come a time where somebody puts My Sharona on the radio, and I don't have to get up and dance. I hope that day is a long time coming.
I'm sure that is a long time
hope
coming.
so.
Yeah, there just are things like that. Hi Ho Silver
Yeah,
Lining
yeah,
always
Oh, I
gets me
know. Yes.
on my feet.
Yeah. They sing that because I live in Twickenham. After rugby matches, they all come down to the pub down by the river, and there's definitely a kind of tape loop of stuff they all sing, and but the best one I can hear it right through the closed front door is Hi Ho Silver Lining, and I think they're probably going home soon because that's one of the last ones.
Bless.
But it's great.
Bless.
But I mean, presumably your house is just full of music, because obviously John Astley's your husband, who's really well-known record producer. So, I mean, is the house really all full of music, or is it one of those things you put to bed because that's something
it's absolutely. He doesn't play music in the house for fun.
Yeah.
If it's music, it's work, and he's in the studio on the middle floor, and that's where he does it. But it's me. I mean, if he's away or something, I have music on my computer the whole time. I've got a fancy speaker, and that's my stuff, and I love it. But I've got very odd mixtures. I've got things like, I don't know, Manic Monday, and I don't know. I've got bangles, and I've got all sorts of things. But it's a real mixture.
Do you sing or play? I mean, do you have a musical instrument?
No,
you don't. Yeah.
I'm the sort of person that even when they have those choirs that say no audition required, they would just shut me out. I do not sing well, which is a shame because I'd love to be able to. It would be great, but I can manage it at funerals and things, but there again, only just.
Yeah,
It's the one time we get to sing, isn't it?
I know, it's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially as weddings are rarely church ones these days as well.
Very, very rarely. I can't remember the last time I went to a church wedding. It might have been mine.
I didn't have one. My daughter got married last year in her own garden.
Oh,
And there again, not singing. But at the end, when they'd done the ceremony, the going out music was the Archers theme.
Was it? No.
It was wonderful. They'd just done all the bits, and they were just going to wander off to go to the bar, obviously. And then suddenly, da 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 da. It was wonderful. And none of us knew that was coming. So that's
isn't
good.
it fantastic?
That must have been really.
So
really
she's an Archers listener as well, is she?
Yes,
Yeah.
but her wife isn't so keen.
Okay.
She's coming round to it. But they've been together about 17 years. But I think it's only Layla who's really Archers.
So does she tend to?
Robin does like a podcast. She likes what's it called? The big one.
Dumpty Dum?
No, the thing
Dum-Dee-Dum
on
one.
not podcast. What's it? The one on Sundays where it's all together. What's it
the
called?
omnibus. The
That's the
omnibus.
word. Yes.
Yeah, the omnibus.
Yes, she quite likes that because you can keep up more easily.
Yeah. I mean, I always try and listen to it. Well, I do listen because I love. That's the weird thing, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Even though I'm in it, when I listen to the omnibus, and I know what the studio looks like, and I know there's actors. It takes me into a different place, and I've got the own image of. This is what's so wonderful about books, isn't it? And I love about radio as well, because it's not done for you. It's all in your imagination, and you have to work at that. And I love.
Well, that's
that.
the thing, you see. That's why the Anarchists came about. There is no cast. The Archers are real because they are in your head when you're listening.
Of course they are.
It's so much better than television.
Yeah. Oh,
So
absolutely.
I think Coronation Street is spoiled by not being on the radio, frankly.
It would be lovely on the radio, wouldn't
yes.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much as I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still watch it now?
I do, actually, yes. Definitely. I'm quite... it annoys me because everything is now very sensationalised. It's because they have to compete with EastEnders, where nobody can even sort of leave a house without a massive row, can they? So, and it's getting a bit like that too. But
it's that they all compete with each other, don't they? I mean, I think I've always thought as well, it's much more immediate and instant, isn't it? Some of the, like Coronation and Emmerdale, and EastEnders, whereas that's one of the beauties, I think, I don't know what you guys think about the Archers, that we can take it in a slower pace sometimes.
Yes.
You know, it can reveal itself slowly, whereas I think there's this pressure, isn't there, in TV to make everything immediately kind of impact, and let's get on to the next thing as fast as we can.
Yeah, I did really admired how the Rob Titchener and Helen story was actually in real time, wasn't it, pretty much?
It worked
so
very
it went
well.
on over those couple of years. And I thought that was brilliantly done.
It was really
wonderful.
was really well done, and it was curious, really, because Tim, who played Rob, the loveliest man and the cleverest actor, and I very rarely had scenes with him because I wasn't part of the storyline. But I do remember I had a couple of scenes with him towards the end when he was getting really kind of heavy. And it was really odd working with him because he got into that character so well that I did feel when I was doing the scene with him just a little bit unnerved, actually, because he'd inhabited him so well. He was brilliant. I don't think the storyline would have worked quite as well if we hadn't had two brilliant actors doing it, to be frank, but they were very clever with it.
Yeah. I wonder if he'll come back.
I know.
I mean, I can't imagine him abandoning that little boy.
I know.
Forever.
No. Because of the type of personality he was. Absolutely not, you know. No, it'll be interesting. You'll have to get onto the...
If you can find where Ambridge is, if you find where Ambridge is this month, he might well turn up again, I suppose.
That's true. That's true.
Just going back to music for a minute, what do you think is the best gig you've ever seen? What's the gig that you saw that you just is the one that really was phenomenal? Or have you just seen so many?
Real standout gig. I think... it was going back an awful long way. It was Stones at the Savile Theatre in, I think, 1970. And the theatre was quite small. And we were fairly near the front. And I think that was... I'd never seen the Stones. I was just too young to see them on Eel Pie Island, which is a place my mother always said I should never go because it's dangerous. So, of course, I went.
You went there?
But I think that was a really good one. Trying to think of others. There've been a lot. Oh, and the Beatles. The first time I saw the Beatles.
Oh, wow.
Did you see the Beatles?
I did. I
never
saw them
the
lots. I first saw them at Slough, Adelphi on the 18th of May 1963 with my friend Pauline. We were absolutely screamed ourselves sick. We really did, yes. It was just phenomenal. It was really great.
I bet it was. And who was your favourite? Who did you fancy then? Which one of them?
I fancied Ringo, actually.
Did
and
you?
I still do. I think I think he's turned out well.
Yeah.
He's pretty hot. I mean, at least he's there. That's something.
Quite. He's survived, hasn't he?
Yeah. And also, realising... Did you watch that Get Back big, huge 9 hours of it, I think it was?
No, I've not seen it.
It was wonderful. And the rapport between John and Paul was just so amazing.
Really?
But it really pointed out to me what a genius songwriter Paul is, actually.
Yeah.
He really is. I haven't been to a big gig for a long time. I go to lots of little local ones. I go to the local Eel Pie Club thing, where we have various bands on. And I did go and see the Stones at Twickenham Stadium because it's only walking up the road. Right. And that was great. I loved that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how extraordinary to have seen them over such a long period of time.
And the same level of energy in Mick. I don't know where he gets it from.
How does he do it?
No idea.
He must keep fit, to do that? Because you don't have to.
Doesn't he do hours of it per day? And also his father was a gym teacher, a PE teacher. So I think it's in the genes somewhere. Yeah.
But the fact that they're, it is, I mean, we were talking about, getting older and so on, but the fact that these guys, a lot of them are still going, and because it does require a huge amount of energy, doesn't it, to perform like that, the level that they perform at. It's great. It's very inspiring.
I have to say, isn't an old saying that when the world ends, there'll just be cockroaches and Keith Richards?
Yes.
And I think that there's something in that. He said all his doctors told him you'd never live to to be, 70 or whatever. He said he's buried 3 of them. So
it is extraordinary, isn't it? If you, you would have put money on him not surviving.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wouldn't you?
That's fascinating, isn't it, about human beings and our physicality and our energy. It's like some people can have all sorts of illnesses or whatever, but they still have this chi energy, which just keeps them moving on. It's the only way I can describe it, just brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant,
amazing. Yeah.
So what do you find about, you were saying you get really cross about people describing anyone over 60 as decrepit, which, is really why Sonny and I started the podcast, because we do as well. Are you enjoying being older? Capital B, capital O.
Yes, because the alternative isn't too great, is it? But
exactly.
But yes, I am actually. And I sort of feel a bit like a superpower, It's you've been all the ages. You are still all the ages you've ever been, because they're still in there. But also, you know a lot more than people think you do, than younger people think you do. They all think we know nothing. And I think our generation certainly has been very lucky in lots of ways.
Yeah, we have.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least we've all got, we've got somewhere to live for a start, which is something. But yeah, it's a bit like having had that superpower feeling, like having had 3 vaccinations plus having caught COVID. I now feel like Superwoman. I'm okay. Probably wrong about that, but I think getting to this age and still being fairly bouncy, I think is a huge privilege. I don't have anything particularly debilitating that I know of. I'm just touching wood here. So yeah, getting a bit stiffer in the old joints, but not too much. I like having a freedom pass. I mean, it's small things, isn't it?
But it's really exciting, isn't it? When you
great,
get all
isn't
that.
It?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I love it.
I might nip up to Chelsea later, and it won't cost me a thing.
And you think, well, I've earned that. I've earned that actually. I really earned it.
Absolutely.
Well, they'll take it.
I got so excited.
They'll take it away if they can. I'm sure at some point.
They will. But I messaged Sonny because I was very excited in the week. We got a branch of Iceland around the corner, and I nipped in there on Tuesday and got 10% off everything, because it's 10% off for the over 60s at Morrison's on a Tuesday.
Is it? Good grief.
Yeah.
I'll tell John, actually. He's
That's
a great
amazing.
one for shopping with Waitrose vouchers.
Yeah,
They all come to me for some reason, and he's straight down Waitrose coming back saying, I got £20 off.
Well done,
He
him.
gets so excited about it. It's a whole hobby.
It is a bit of a thrill,
I
isn't
can
it?
understand that. I think it's great. I'm a bit hopeless, you see, with that, because I tend to stuff them in the bag and think, well, I must remember that when I go. And then, of course, I forget. I get to the till in M&S or Morrison's or wherever, Waitrose, and then they're out of date, aren't they? Drives me mad, actually.
Yes.
Drives me mad.
Yeah. No, it's his new obsession. He has to have something.
Well, as well as the planes.
Yes,
well
there's that.
Well as the
He's always
planes.
planning the next trip to go and see some. He's going to Ecuador in November.
So this is fascinating.
Well, he says he is. I mean, he's planned Ecuador for the last 3 years, but of course, first of all there was a coup, then there was COVID. And no doubt there'll be something else, monkeypox or something. I don't know.
But what does he? Sorry, Jenny, I'm fascinated now. So what does he do then? Does he go up in these planes, or does he just go and look at them and take pictures of them? What happens?
He takes pictures and he looks at them with various friends. There are people all over the world who do this. It's very odd. We went to Paris a couple of years ago, probably 3 years ago now, because it was on Bastille Day, and they have a massive fly past. Every plane they've got in their Air Force comes along the Seine. And we were sitting in a little outside a little cafe with a couple of friends he was also in it, and we were having wine and a nice time. And all these people kept coming past saying, "Oh, hi John, hi Ian," I thought, they're all over the place. Yes. Because they'd all come over for it. On the plane back, EasyJet with plane back was full of British plane spotters.
No,
isn't that
He knew half the people on there.
Gosh.
Isn't it a bit dangerous? Because didn't some guys get arrested in, was it Greece or something a few years ago?
They hadn't organised it properly. You have to get permission from the Greek Air Force. You have to be invited. You have to have a press pass There's all sorts of stuff.
Of
And
course.
John's been to Greece twice this year to look at planes, but it's all very organised, very safe, so he says. Until the day, you know, I get the call, obviously, and say, sorry, Mrs. Astley, your husband has been arrested.
Because I can imagine there are a lot of countries that might get a bit upset about their military jets being photographed.
I think a lot of them do, but you have to do it with permission,
Yes.
always.
So then you're all
I
right.
mean, there are people who'll go and they'll try and sneak a camera in where you're not allowed, and it just spoils it for everybody,
Of
really.
course.
John did get, I remember years ago, decades ago, we were in America and I was sitting in the car park of this military base doing the crossword or something, and I saw John being marched along into a room between two blokes and with rifles and the whole
my
bit.
goodness.
And I thought, I expect he'll talk its way out of it. And I thought, if not, in my head I was thinking, well, I've got my passport and I've got a ticket to get home. Very hard like that.
I know where the life insurance policy is.
He's got himself into it, he'll have to get himself out of it. Yeah,
Exactly.
funny.
But it was fine. He was in a bit that he shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Oh my
Gosh, you don't want to
Lord.
get it.
So, but mostly you don't worry when he trolls off.
No, I quite like
on these
it
expeditions.
because I get time on my own. And much as, you know, when you've lived with someone for over 50 years, a few days apart is to be welcomed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not permanently, I wouldn't want that, but just
No.
just those few days, maybe a week.
That's right. It's good to get your own
great.
space. And of course you love Cornwall, don't you? You're
Yes, we're the dreaded second homers. But
But you've been doing that for a long time now, haven't you? I mean, you've
nearly 40 years. So both the daughters live down there permanently. They've got. Zelda runs a school, and Layla works for the police.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they both settled, had their children there, raised them, and they're in local schools. It kind of works for them. But the house prices there are going up, and there's very little proper employment. There's lots of, seasonal, obviously, but it's quite hard. It's quite tough actually for most local kids. Casper, the oldest grandchild, he's planning coming to London for a bit. I think he'll hate it actually, but he loves London at the moment because he's young.
Yeah.
But I think he might end up back there. He's a chef, so
Yeah.
in a very fancy place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so more opportunities in London, I suppose.
He's got the skills that he'll never be out. He won't be out of work. He'll always be able to do something.
Yeah, how exciting!
It's good.
How exciting! But we were talking about this actually the other day, weren't we, Janie? If you were born in the country or born in the city, and if the pull of each place is where you feel really comfortable. Because I'm a country lass, and I love open fields and green fields, and as you say, whether eventually Casper will do all the city stuff, and whether he will eventually be drawn back. Because you feel, Janie, you don't feel that comfortable in the countryside, do you? Particularly.
No.
I don't either.
No, it's such a go.
Yeah. You don't?
No, not particularly. I mean, I love our little house, but it's in the middle of absolutely isolated nowhere. It's on a stately home type estate, but it's right in the middle of it. It's a mile and a half to get off the estate, let alone to the shop. So it's not something I'm not sort of helping to deplete a village by not being there all the time. I feel this isn't really a house that a family would necessarily want to live in full time. But it is very cute. But last time we were there, John had gone, and I was a couple of days on my own. And I actually welcomed the fact there were builders next door, because there's us and one other little cottage. And I thought, there's people. It's exciting, there's people. Even though it was a cement mixer and a drill. I just thought there's a sign of life. I like being here in Twickenham, where I can walk up the road for that pint of milk I've forgotten, rather than have to get in the car.
Yeah.
But we
and as we get older, I think I watch those Escape to the Country and all that kind of thing at people who are getting older and want to go and live somewhere very remote, and I think I want to be somewhere near the chemist, the doctor,
Exactly,
and somewhere that the ambulance can find without having to have some sort of massive sat-nav system from space.
I agree, yes. I mean, I like it here, and also there's choice of hospitals and what have you here. In Cornwall, there is the very, very overstretched Royal Cornwall Hospital, which does a terrific job, but in summer it has to deal with hopeless tourists as well, and people like me, of course. I go there a lot. We're there a lot because otherwise I wouldn't see all the girls and their children. But it is not an easy place to live, really, I think.
And it's not going to get any easier, is it, with the financial issues that we have facing us, all of us now?
No,
So,
it really isn't.
Judy, if what would you now tell your younger self, do you think?
I'd probably tell her. Do I know what I know now? Presumably.
Yeah.
I would tell her to stop being so boy obsessed. You'll get a nice one in the end.
And you did.
Yes, I did. I did. I'd also tell her she's not as ugly duckling as she thinks she is. Because looking back, you see photos of yourself, and I thought I was skinny, my arms were too thin to show, now they're too fat to show. And you think these things don't matter.
Yeah.
And also read everything. I did then anyway, but even more. And stay good at maths.
Stay good at maths.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because I think it's think of it as puzzles rather than difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And don't listen to that headmistress who told me I was flying a bit high by wanting to apply to Oxford. I didn't apply and I wouldn't have got in. But to have that discouragement, you should not. I shouldn't have let it get to me.
No,
that's horrible.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that stays.
It does.
Well, obviously, I remember it, and I always will.
It's.
But I thought that was
I
cruel.
hope.
Yeah.
I hope that every time she goes into a bookshop and sees your books lined up there, she thinks, "Oh, could that be that saying?" She probably wouldn't realise because your name's changed.
Yeah, I know there is that about name changing, isn't there? You think all those horrible cows at school.
Yeah.
Who were nasty and bitchy. I want to say, yay, that's her.
So what was your maiden name, Judy? What was your name at school?
It was Fender, like the guitars.
Oh, brilliant.
Right, so
Judy
anybody who said rotten things to Judy Fender when she was at school, think on, because she's written 20 novels, she's got another one coming, and she's a brilliant, brilliant person. Thank you so much for giving us your time today, Judy.
Oh, thank you. It's been brilliant.
And keep us updated. Keep us updated about your, the book that you're writing. And
okay.
Let us know.
I will.
Yeah. Come and talk to us again when it's about to go out on the shelves.
Oh, I hope it will.
Because you are a brilliant writer, and I really am enjoying this book so much. So I've got about 60 more novels to go. Thank you for giving me the pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks for listening to our One Stiletto in the Grave podcast. If you'd like to see behind-the-scenes clips and bonus content, please visit our Facebook page, One Stiletto in the Grave podcast. And if you'd like to ask any questions, follow us on Twitter at OneStiletto65. This podcast is produced by Raggedy House Productions and the music composed by Tom Smith. See you next time!